All right, so these two kids are two kids who I am very closely personally associated with. I've known them for almost the entirety of my high school career and the entirety of theirs. I'm proud that they're both running for our Senate President. If you would like to introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Josh Thomas.
I'm Marshall Feingold.
Wow. They start off with a bang. We're going to start off the same way we start off with every single position. It's going to be, why are you running for president? And obviously that's a very broad question, so if you could keep it as specific and short as possible, that'd be great. Marshall.
I'm running for Senate President because I believe that I can most effectively fulfill this role in our student government. And I'll go through a couple of reasons why, very briefly. First is through representation. I think a lot of those who know me and don't know me is that if there's one thing I can bring to the table, it's a strong voice to communicate what we need, and I'll make sure that we do that. Secondly is idealism. What ideas can we bring to the school and what can we push for? I'm going to make sure that every single idea that we put forth, whether it's improvements to our student lobby, cafeteria, or overall in the school, we're going to get to it, we're going to push for it with administration. And lastly is our budget. In every governmental organization, it is imperative that we have an idea of what our financials look like. I have served as Senate Treasurer the last year. I can tell you that with that knowledge, I think that I can best serve as our Senate President as that overall of that plan.
Student government is where I learned how to become a leader. It was a privilege to serve as the class president for the past 3 years. And it was in these years that I learned to listen to what each student had to say. Never once did I turn anyone down when they had an idea. And I believe that as Senate President, the most important aspect is how can I make sure that the needs of the students are addressed. And I believe as class president, founding and leading the Student Advisory Committee, which brought you the hydration stations and the water bottle refilling stations, the Kindle Fires are in the library, the phone chargers as well in the library. These were all ideas that I took. Some of these were my ideas, but also listening to what each student had to say. So that's exactly what I plan to do as Senate President, and that's to listen to what each student has to say.
That's perfect. They're obviously both very strong men of action. Both of you have experience prior in student government, very, very profound experience actually. Josh with being the junior class president and Marshall with being the Senate treasurer. What do you think those roles have taught you that you could bring to becoming the Senate president? Josh.
So I was class president for the past 3 years, and over these years, I made sure that each student was able to we were able to address their needs in the Student Advisory Committee. And it's in this committee that I talked with the administration and pushed for these ideas to happen. I recall one specific event, which was in the office of Mr. Gessner, and Mr. Steinberg was there as well, and there was the hydration stations, and this was before we had them in the school. And the idea came about saying, Josh, I don't know if this is possible. And at that time, I was discouraged, but never once did I give up. And the following year, somewhere in November this year, I figured out that they were going to install the hydration stations, and we made it happen. And it's all about making a difference in this high school. So I believe that as an experienced leader, making executive decisions and organizing school-wide events, that I will be an effective Senate President.
Perfect, Josh. Marshall?
Well, just like Josh, I've served in student government over the past 3 years, except our difference, I have a little bit of a different experience. The first 2 years, I served as merely a student leader in student government, someone who lost an election but stayed involved, and I think that's very important to provide a unique point of view to certain events that we hold throughout the school. But over the last year, I've had the privilege of serving as your Senate Treasurer. Now, being on the Senate board, I saw a lot about what the Senate President has to do every single day. As Senate President, from day one, this experience will lead to a seamless transition into doing what we need to get done for the rest of the year. Secondly, on that point, is as Senate Treasurer, I was able to look at our budget and balance it and do it in an appropriate way. But I think that's very important and indicative into what we have to do as Senate President, because in every governmental organization, it's our budget that allows us to operate and keep funds flowing throughout the school and events operating. And lastly on that point is the operation I've had in leading events and organizing events gave me the perfect experience to running as your Senate President.
That's perfect. This is a question straight from your student government peers, and they want to ask you, what's your greatest weakness? Marshall.
I think that my greatest weakness moving forward, whether it's Senate President or not, is going to be execution throughout the year. And I say this for one reason. As the year goes on, whether you're an elected official or not, things get out of focus. You come into the year, whether newly elected or not, with a lot of motivation to get things done. But that goes out throughout the year. Now, I've experienced that in a lot of things that happen, and that's just natural, that's human tendency. But I can tell you this, with that being my weakness, and with me acknowledging that, that will not happen. Because throughout the entire year of next year, we will execute on every single endeavor that we set out to do, and here's why. Because the chance to do good is so great, and the standard that we will be held to is so high. And with those being the stakes, it is imperative that we don't lose focus, that we move forward.
Josh.
I think my greatest weakness is really controlling. When there's an event going on and I need to make sure that things go correctly, I will make sure that people know we're all on the same page. And until they give me a text back saying, "Hey Josh, I totally understand what you're saying," I will make sure that we have this event under control. And there's certain things like making executive decisions. Like instead of doing Battle of the Bands like the junior class typically does, I decided to go a different route, which was Brace Fest. And currently we are experiencing the greatest success. And what I've been doing is we have this app called GroupMe, and I've made sure that everyone who is participating in that committee, a Brace Fest committee, is responding and making sure that we're on track to have a successful event. So in essence, if there was one weakness, it's that I make sure, sometimes going too far, to make sure everything goes correctly.
All right, guys, this is a question straight from your current Senate President, Linher, and she wants to ask you guys, how do you plan on balancing your other responsibilities, personal and other clubs? I know both of you are very involved in our school, with those of the very important position of Senate President. Josh?
Well, senior year is the last year, the final year where some seniors think, this is it, I'm not going to try this year, but that's not my mentality. Next year, if I was Senate President, I will make sure that I will treat the Senate presidency with I will work my hardest each and every day, just like I have done when the first steps I took into Syosset High School as class president. And so when you ask me, how will I manage everything, I've been managing all these things, not only class financials for the past 3 years, but organizing school-wide events, addressing school-wide issues. These were things that I already did for the past 3 years. And so in my final year as Senate President, I look to do exactly that, and that's listen to what each individual has to say.
Marshall?
The Senate President position requires utmost and first priority. Now, I'm involved in a lot of things about the school, and I'm going to be very transparent about that. But I think that gives me a very unique ability to have the position and lead, a unique ability to represent everyone in the school and to recognize key events throughout every club, group, and school operation that I can represent. Now, the reason I'm running for Senate President is because I know that this position will be prioritized above all, because that's what it demands. I wouldn't be running if I didn't think I can handle it. Now, I'm telling you right now that moving forward as Senate President, it will be my first priority to make sure that my plan for action and everything that I set out to do, whether it's my idealism or whether it's everyone else's, where I hope it comes from, because communications can be important, that we get to those. Because that is what it comes down to. It comes down to execution, and it comes down to making sure that this position is prioritized, because that is what it demands.
Okay, so coincidentally, this question was asked by both people in student government and by the freshman class who obviously don't know you two as well. And that question is, both of you seem like huge faces in student government, very active, very seen around the school all the time. And it's what distinguishes you from your opponent? Nothing mean, of course, but what distinguishes you? What's special about you? What do you think is different that you bring to the table? And we'll start with Marshall this time.
I think what's different moving forward is that I'm going in as Senate President, or to run for Senate President, with a plan for action. With what am I going to do? I'm running on my record as saying, here's what I did as Senate Treasurer and student government over the past 3 years. But now and today, I'm looking forward and seeing, what can we get done that's new? And I want to go through three things very briefly. First is going to be continuing responsible financial planning. As you know, that I've been Senate Treasurer over the past year, and we've instituted an itemized budget of everything that we spend. Moving forward, number one will be to work with our Senate Treasurer to make sure that we can continue that proper financial planning to meet the goal that every club and every group can get what they need. Secondly is going to be improvements throughout the school. Now, I've had a hand in Josh because we work together in a lot of these different endeavors to bring 2 hydration stations and other improvements around the school. But I know of ongoing projects, such as those to bring enhanced sound systems and TV monitors to the student lobby and cafeteria. Now, I know, and I'm not promising that those are going to get there, But here's what I am promising, that we're going to push for them, because there is a need, and I know that with the right student action, it can be done. Secondly, with regards to improvements, is going to be listening to what you're going to bring to the table and pushing for those as well. And one of those has been the bathrooms. Using key buzzwords in meetings, such as health and safety hazard, is going to be key. And lastly, is strong representation, a strong voice to represent what Syosset needs to administration and to the community.
Josh?
Now, first I'd like to say that Marshall and I, we've known each other since the beginning of freshman year, and we are great friends. But I think what differentiates me and him, I believe it's execution. I believe I have executed these past 3 years. Founding the Student Advisory Committee, which has executed projects like the hydration station, which has executed projects like the Kindle fires and the phone chargers in the library, like extending the sidewalks near the parent drop-off area. These were all projects that I did execute. And now, in my final year, I hope to be the Senate President and make sure that your voice is heard. And I've done that for the past 3 years. As Marshall hit upon, the school bathrooms, they're in terrible condition. That's what I personally feel. And I've already, talked to a few administrators about this issue. Not only that, but improving the school Wi-Fi. These are all ideas which I believe that I can execute as Senate President. And also, it's approachability. I don't want you to think of me as someone above you. I want to be someone with you, a part of the student body. And if you have anything that you want to say to me, stop me in the hall and say, hey Josh, can you do this? And that's exactly why I believe I should be the Student Government Senate President.
All right, perfect. So both of you, large faces in student government, but unfortunately in our school, there's a large population of our school, as the other candidates brought up, that are uninformed, uninvolved, and don't have too much school spirit. How can you connect to those masses? Josh?
I think it starts, we had a great year in sports this year, and that was a great start. Now next year, I think we can start at Pep Rally. Pep Rally is a key event, which I believe in the past few years, what I've seen is that unfortunately we just don't have school spirit, and that's an issue that I hope to address. If we were to incorporate something a student mentioned, having t-shirt cannons during Pep Rally, and I think that's a great idea. There are certain things that we can do, the small things that we can do to make sure that we have school spirit. So in essence, what we should do is address the issues that the school has and make sure they're responded to promptly.
Marshall?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Just so
All right, the question is basically a large portion of our school, unfortunately, as the other candidates mentioned, are uninformed, uninvolved, and don't have too much school spirit. How can you connect to those masses of people?
Well, here's how we're going to do it. The first step is going to start with Pep Rally. But we need something that's going to be a little bit larger to create a stir and talk about it and change the conversation to embodying school spirit. Now, for that to happen, there has to be a problem. And there is a problem. There is no school spirit. So there are two projects this year that the Senate Board and Student Government came underway in doing that I believe that when they're actually done, which they will be by the end of this year, we're going to create a large conversation about school spirit and move that forward into next year's Pep Rally. First is the new mascot. Hopefully we will get away with the Brave Cat and move to an actual Brave. I think that's the first area in which we're moving forward with, and I think that'll be very interesting to start the conversation of, wow, this is pretty cool, and I want to go to a lot of these games to see it. And secondly, it's going to be the school-wide t-shirt. Now, we've been lucky to have, over the past year, Student Government and the Senate Board designing a school t-shirt. We voted on it. I hope you voted on it, too. And what's going to happen is we're going to order that and just distribute it out to those who buy it. And I think that's going to be the second point that talks about a larger school spirit combination. And moving forward with Pep Rally on the first couple weeks in September, we'll be able to have those two key events to launch off the new year.
Perfect. Now, these questions are actually been a little bit more individualized. You guys are running for one of the most important positions in the school. I'm going to talk to Josh first specifically. It's going to be the question, you always talk about how approachable you are. Do you ever think that approachability will lead to a difficulty in compromising? Everyone wants different things, and everyone brings in different things to student government. They want different things. Because you're such an approachable, nice guy, how do you make the tough decisions, and how do you make compromise between these groups of people?
Compromise is probably one of the most important things, being a leader. There were certain projects that people mentioned to me, and some issues I brought up, but they were just not there was not how do I phrase this? It just didn't work out. There are certain problems with administration. It's just how it works. But I will work day in and day out to make sure that your voice is heard as the Senate President. And so essentially what I find what the Senate President needs to do is, approachability is absolutely important. When a student comes to you, you're the Senate President, you're the leader of this school. Never once should you, turn them down and say, no, that's not possible. Instead, you bring it up at student government just like I have each and every time. And if, the administrator says, no, it's probably not possible, that's okay. As long as you tried your level best, as I've tried with every single person that came to me, I find that that's the most crucial part of being the Senate President. Being approachable, not being someone above the student body, but being with them.
Perfect. Marshall, you always talk about planning and then executing this action, bringing people together and talking about it, making this stir. What's the difference between talking to people, convincing them with your words, and then convincing them with your actions? And how are you planning to bring that into students?
There's only one way I can illustrate that. I can say it, but I have to demonstrate it, and that's through their actions, and that's through my record as Senate Treasurer. Last year, I ran on one simple promise: to create an itemized budget that tracked all of our fixed and variable expenses with the ultimate goal of making sure that every club and every group can get what they need. This year, I'm proud to report that student government is balanced and our financials are strong. And here's why I can say that. First, because we have an itemized budget. I call it People and Prosperity, Investments for a Secure Future. Because we have everything planned out for the year, and that's how we can make responsible decisions. And in doing so, every single club that comes to the table, we have to meet a certain criteria. Have they fundraised? Are they a competition club? And what does their future look like here in Syosset? Those are all certain things of distributing funds. And here are the results. The results is that student government is balanced, but more so is that there was a change in conversation. A change in conversation about 3 years ago, we can give money to whoever we want. Now, student government makes sure that we're giving out money responsibly, because that is what we have to do if we want to make sure that everyone can get what they need to fill their operations. So if there's one thing about execution and talking, look what I did over the past year.
It's perfect. Two more questions. One from our senior class. We haven't brought this up yet, but everyone knows it's always on the senior class's mind. They always have this question, and it's prom. What are the problems with it? What are our successes this year? And how do you think you're going to approach that issue in the future? You guys are both going to be seniors next year. Hopefully both going to have a good time at prom. What do you guys think about the issue as a whole? We'll start with you this time.
I love prom. I'm looking forward to it, to be honest. I don't know about you, but I'm going to make sure that everyone can get there. So here are a couple of the problems that I heard, and here's how we're going to deal with them. Well, first, unfortunately, it has a very high price, and the junior class account should be having a good amount to subsidize it. But right now, I don't know how much is in that account because of what happened with junior formal, and as you know, there's lack of attendance. So moving forward for next year, what we have to do is launch beginning of the year fundraisers to make sure that we can subsidize a little bit the cost of prom. I know it's very difficult. But unfortunately, I'm going to be honest with you, it's the Cipriani's, and that's the contract. So the price isn't going to change much. So I just want to get that off the table. Let's move to the second problem. The second problem is that a lot of people didn't know where to go to facilitate a lot of the information, from food and meals to tables. I want to make that very transparent. I want to make that available all over social media, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, and make sure it's in the main office and all senior classes. And lastly, as the issue of a whole of prom, I want to make sure that our prom is the best. And I say that because I love Syosset, I love what we stand for, and I love to be when everyone is together. I think that's going to be our chance to do it. And I think that with the embodiment of school spirit that we're going to have, everyone will go to prom, and everyone's going to have a great time. And those are how I'm going to deal with some of the issues.
Josh?
Prom is probably one of the most memorable events of high school. And I've been the class president for the past 3 years. And I've been working for 3 years to subsidize that class, our prom that'll happen in 2016. And as Marshall said, we are looking pretty good to subsidize that, that cost. I've organized a Chipotle fundraiser. I've organized 2 car washes. All these things were done to make sure that we can have prom more affordable. And in essence, I've been working with this class for the past 3 years, and it's this experience that I have with making executive decisions. Perhaps it's dealing with a school-wide event or prom in this case. I have this experience. So essentially what I want to do with subsidizing our prom ticket is have additional fundraisers. One idea specifically that I had is within the months, each month leading up to prom, we should have as a class 1 fundraiser. What that'll do is subsidize that price ticket from $175 to hopefully much below that. So in essence, I hope to make sure that our senior year experience is the best it could possibly be.
All right, perfect, both of you. This is just last question. Some lasting words. You know, a lot of people say that student government elections are these popularity contests, and I know that both of you disagree particularly. Tell me what you think this student government election is going to be about, and why it's not going to be that popularity contest. Josh.
Well, I think this election comes down to who do you see as someone you can approach? Who do you see as a friend? And both of us are very well known in student government and around the school with other clubs. But I want to be known as someone you can stop and just say, hey Josh, can I talk to you about something? And so essentially what I want to convey to the voters is not that this is a popularity contest, because that's not right, because in the beginning of freshman year, I was not a popular student. What I was is proactive. I was proactive. I was committed as a student government member. Every day for the carnival, which we had in the past 3 years, which was for which was important aspect of fundraising for student government. I was there each day, working from the time it started till the time it ended, and essentially, I want to serve you as a friend.
Marshall?
Well, I don't think this election is going to be a popularity contest because you have two people right now, two great-looking people that have been involved in student government over the past 3 years, and the question is, well, it's a tough choice, and what are we going to do? And fortunately, this is an investment in the future of what we're going to do, and that's why I have a plan for action of different things about the school, that what we're going to do is going to strengthen the school. Now also, I think people that know me and who don't know me and that see me walk around the halls is I'm a very loose guy, looking to joke around, but also when it comes to serious business and going to the business table, I'm ready to negotiate. And I think that distinction is going to be very important. The ability to be your friend, just like Josh is, because I know he's my friend, so I know that we're friends. To joke around with administration, because I love doing that. Mr. Steinberg and I always do that, right? We had our shirts off. That's not true. I'm kidding. That didn't actually happen. Nonetheless, when it comes to being serious, that did not happen. You can get fired for that. But what did happen, what is serious, is that when it comes to doing business, is that I'm very serious when it comes to negotiating table. I'm always ready to talk to the administration about what we're going to do, and that's why this election is important. It's the investment for the future. I've made those investments over the past year, and looking forward to reinvesting our profits.
Perfect, guys. Let's have a handshake and just an applause.